Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Annie Davis, here to review Week 11 in the NFL of the 2024 season. With me today, I've got a returning guest. You know him well from our Steelers season previews from the Franchise Tag podcast. Here with us today is Freddie Hall. Freddie, how are things?
Yeah, doing pretty well. Very, very good time to be a Steelers fan at the minute. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, no problem at all. And of course, we were meant to be seeing each other literally 2 weekends ago in Munich. But as you all know from now, illness got the better of me, so I did not make it. It looked like a cracking day. How was the whole? You were there quite early on in the week. How was the whole Munich experience for you, Freddie?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I was very fortunate enough to NFL's opened a lot of doors and windows and met friends made where I was able to go to the Bayern Munich Benfica Champions League game that I bought a ticket for through a NFL friend, which was really, really cool. And shout out to Lucas because he really helped me out and that was great. So I was there from Wednesday to Monday. Great catching up with a lot of the UK scene, podcast guys, television guys, radio guys. I hung around with a lot of the Talk Sport guys, and they're fantastic. Really, really, really great bunch. Decent game. Really cool going to the Giants press conference before the game, and then obviously I did the Panthers press conference after the game as the winning team. And Munich was a fantastic city. Really, really fantastic. Better than Frankfurt. As much as I've enjoyed the Frankfurt experience, Munich's got a bit more going on for it. So long may it continue. And maybe, exciting to maybe see if Berlin happens next year.
There was talk about it, isn't there? I saw on a friend of the show, Jay Lawrence's TikTok about potentially being a different German city, which I'm all for, experiencing new places and the NFL growing, and with Spain included now as well next year, which is fingers crossed the Dolphins. Then it's certainly expanding, and with Dublin as well, which you'll be very excited about, Freddie, I'm sure, because it's definitely locked that it's going to be the Steelers that play if it is Dublin. I think that's pretty much guaranteed. Which could be against us. We do play you in 2025. I'm not sure who's home actually, but yeah, either way, I think for both of us and just for NFL fans in general, it's really exciting times. And I think what we'll see eventually, I think rather than see a team, I think we'll see a situation where what Goodell will say, we've got 8 games a year, 9 games a year, like a home team does in the NFL. Internationally, all different teams playing. I think that's the way it's going. And exciting times for the NFL. So we'll start off in week 11 on Thursday night as the Washington Commanders took on the Philadelphia Eagles in a battle to lead the NFC East. NFC East. As the Eagles took an advantage, a 2-win advantage or 2-loss advantage over the Commanders as they won by 26 points to 18, with Saquon Barkley stealing the show, 146 yards and 2 touchdowns from 26 carries. First of all, for the Eagles, they're looking like they may well win the division now. Saquon Barkley having what is a tremendous season. I mean, he is having, a guy that for years and years had a great start to life in New York, had his injury problems for a few years, but now he just seems, back to his best. I mean, already he's got over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and that's just, from rushing alone, he's got a couple of touchdowns as well in the receiving game as well. I think we tend to see MVP a lot of times goes to the quarterback, but I think Offensive Player of the Year has gone to in recent years a lot of time to non-quarterbacks. We saw McCaffrey win it last year. We've seen Derrick Henry win it in years gone by. And I think this year, surely Barkley, along with Henry, has to be an Offensive Player of the Year contender.
Yeah, he's definitely got to be. I think really that how much he's influenced his team and how he's gone from a Giants team where, he was the main dude there, and obviously injuries really did hinder him there on occasion. And him going to the Eagles was just the biggest stab to the heart for all Giants fans. And like I say, it's not just him going to the Eagles and succeeding; it's him going to the Eagles and him being their offense. Like they have got some really great players in Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, but really this team is running through Barkley and what he does, and he's been just phenomenal this year. I mean, Derrick Henry over at the Ravens has been fantastic as well. But Barkley's dual threat capability in catching the ball and running the ball just makes him such a diverse player. And the Eagles, I think that they're starting to find their momentum. There was a bit of a stutter step about 3 weeks ago, but now they're trying to find they're finding their momentum and they're really getting really pressing their foot on the acceleration now.
Yeah, and I think, as we found out on the weekend for our fantasy league, I mean, it cost me a lot of being a run heavy first, and Barkley being the sort of main guy on offense, because I had Devontae Smith in my team against you, and he only got 6.9 points, and that goes a lot of time down to AJ Brown. Obviously, got the lion's share of the receptions, but yeah, when you got someone like Barkley who can do what you can do in the run game, I think it does limit probably someone like Smith's ability to get some stats on the board. So, yeah, good win for them. But for the Commanders, on the other hand, just their third loss of the season, which fans would have taken start of the year. If someone told you start of the year as a Commanders fan, you start the season 7-3, I think people would bite your hand off after what it's been like. The last, pretty much the last ever since Dan Snyder walked in the front office. But there's been talk about recently about them being a bit of frauds. I mean, this strikes for me last year a lot of resemblance to my own team, the Dolphins. Last year, we only beat one team with a winning record, and now with a team who also couldn't beat teams with winning records. But looking at their sort of results this season, teams they've beaten, the Giants and Bengals, they've had their struggles, particularly the Giants, Cleveland as well, Carolina, Bears and Giants again. These are the teams they've beaten. The only team they have beaten, which has got a winning record, is the Cardinals. They beat them in week 4 by 42 points to 14. But then they played Baltimore, they lost to them. They played the Eagles, lost to them. Played your Steelers last week, lost to them. And the Buccaneers, who do have a losing record, but they also lost to them. So as good as we've praised Jane Daniels, and he is probably him and Bo Nix for I think offensive rookie of the year. But does that sort of worry you a little bit about them, the team that probably is making the playoffs, about their sort of potential to go further than just a wild card round? The fact that they haven't yet beaten really any good team apart from the Cardinals.
No, I don't think it does, and I think you are right in the fact of who they have beaten, who they haven't beaten. I mean, when you look at the rest of the schedule, they're playing Dallas and Tennessee, got the bye week, Saints, Philadelphia Eagles, Falcons, Cowboys. I mean, for me, they're winning. They're sorry, really, you should say they're only losing one game. I think for me in that, and maybe the Falcons will run them close, but I think they beat the Cowboys. I think they beat the Titans. I think they beat the Cowboys twice. I think they beat the Titans, and I think they beat the Saints. I think we could say frauds in terms of we've had teams over the years that have been good teams, and my Steelers did it a few years ago when we were 11-0 in week 11, week 12, and then we lost to the Commanders, I believe, under it was maybe Taylor Heineke or Case Keenum that was starting for them at the time. I think that's a bit more frauds thing because they're actually a team that's sort of set and ready. Whereas this Commanders team, like however far they go this season, is massive kudos to them. Like I've sort of banged the table for this all this season is that Jane Daniels has been playing with no pressure on his shoulders. When you look over at the Chicago Bears taking Caleb at number 1, how much Caleb was talked about and how much onus there was on that team and how he was meant to turn around the franchise, and it's just not happening. Maybe not his fault necessarily, but when you look at Washington, even when they drafted Jaden Daniels, it wasn't like they were saying in the building, Jaden has got to turn this franchise around day one. They sort of knew it was a project. They knew it may take some time. Yes, it's taken less time than they maybe imagined to get wins on the table and to sort of have that shock around the league and have people focusing on them, but he's still got a journey to go in this league. He's still got leaps and bounds to go. He has been phenomenal this year. We've done our show this evening and just sort of discussed about him and Bo Nix and that sort of fight for the offensive rookie of the year spot. And I think he's in with a shout. He's definitely going to be the contender for it. He's probably the guy to knock off that spot at the moment. So for the Commanders, I think at the minute, anywhere if they get to the playoffs, that's a huge win. That's anything more than the playoffs for these guys is huge for them, considering the expectation we had at the start of the season. No one was really jumping for joy at Dan Quinn joining. Like everyone knows he's a decent DC, but he wasn't around the league the one that everyone was going, oh well, you should watch out for them over there. And then he has Cliff Kingsbury in again. His time with the Cardinals, obviously, people don't really have much respect on his name anymore. Well, they certainly do now because the tandem of, I know Quinn's the head coach, but that tandem that they are having is working phenomenal, and it's really doing well for Jaden Daniels, and he's making players, players like Noah Brown, who are not exceptional receivers, look really good in this league at the minute. They've got work to do on their defense. I think that, and I think they know that as well. But again, they must. If the season ended today, they're ecstatic. They're ecstatic because it's not just about today; it's about their future, and you can see that this Commanders team has got a good future.
I think even this season alone, their division is still up for grabs to win because we talk about the schedule for the Commanders, how favourable is. The Eagles still have to play the Rams, the Ravens, the Steelers, and then the Commanders as well. And I think, despite their fault, I think the Cowboys could still cause problems for them as well. So I think, certainly, even though there's, they've got 2 wins, so 2 losses more than the Eagles this season so far, I do feel like there's still a chance because of that favourable schedule they've got that they could go on and win the NFC East, which will be the first time since 2020. Moving on to Sunday, and the Bears missed their chance to win their first game against Green Bay since 2018, but they had a field goal blocked in the last second. The Packers went on to 7-3, and the Bears season surely ended right there. The Lions continued their amazing start to the season. They beat the Jaguars by 52 points to 6, as Goff threw for 4 touchdowns, and the Lions had 7 in total. And then the Rams beat the Patriots by 28 points to 22. The Saints beat the Browns by 35 points to 14. The Colts beat the Jets 28 to 27. And then the Vikings beat the Titans by 23 points to 13. Now, other games at 6 p.m. One was involving my team, one was involving your team. Now, touch on my game quickly because, frankly, our game was somewhat meaningless, but you never know. The Raiders and the Dolphins won by 34 points to 19. 2 wins in a row for the first time this season. Gives us a small bit of playoff hopes. Now, we'll talk about the Broncos. They went out and they beat the Falcons by 38 points to 6. So they're currently the 7th seed with 6 wins. We got 4 wins. The Colts with 5 in that 7th side. They're in the 8th seed, we're in the 9th seed, and then the Broncos in the 7th seed. I mean, for ourselves, it's a tough ask. We've got to try and probably win at least all but 2 of the games. I think we've got to play the Jets twice. That's probably 2 wins. The Browns, the Patriots this weekend coming up, probably looking at wins there. But I think 3 games we're looking at particularly coming up is the Texans, 49ers, and Packers game. The Packers game is on Thanksgiving. So I think if we can come out of that with a win next Thursday, I think that's a big statement. But I think you look at the Colts have got 1 win more, but they've got really 2 wins more because they've got the tiebreaker against us from the game that was on when we were in London together. But I think for us, I think it's good to see us now be competitive. Because I did think a couple weeks ago that the season was done, but I think we've got a chance. I think if we can beat the Packers or even beat the Texans, I think you just never know. And then looking at the Niners, they've been far from perfect this year. I mean, they lost by 20 points 17 on the weekend to the Seahawks. Geno Smith having a late rushing touchdown to win that game for them. So, they're not exactly playing at their best level right now. They got McCaffrey back, so maybe by the time it gets to week 17 or week 16, whichever one it is, there's a chance. But Freddie, as an outsider looking in at this, obviously the Bengals are there with 4 wins as well. How do you rate the Dolphins' chances? Do you think there's no chance at all, or do you think there's a chance that they could pull us out of the bag with how it's been the last 2 weeks?
I think, like I said, who's battering around you at the minute? You're 9th, Colts 8th, Bengals 10th, and then who's on the periphery? So Broncos 6th. I think Sane beating the Jets twice is a bit ambitious because I think their offense is actually, I think they've got some playmakers on that offense. I know their offense isn't exactly clicking, but they have got some players. I think the Bengals are a team that is... It's going to be their defense that is going to wreck their season. The Colts, I just don't know. They're just so bad. I think everyone's in a fine chance at the minute. The only definites I see in the AFC at the minute are the Chiefs Bills. Is the Chiefs Bills really? And I know Ravens are second at the minute, but I do see Ravens as winning it. I do see Ravens as winning the AFC North as well, as good as we've been. It's going to be a hard slog for us in the next few weeks having. We've got Browns, Bengals, Browns, and then we've got to play Ravens again and the Bengals the last day of the season. So, it's all of our division games are coming all at once for us. So the only definites I think are in the AFC are Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs. So everything is up for grabs, really. So at the minute, if you can slip into that spot, I think you've got a chance. you've just got to find it. If you're going to find your step, like you said, you've won 2 games in a row. If you're going to find your step needs to be found now. You know, you need to be back on track now, and you can't, like I said, that you're going to have to work really hard not to give up any more losses throughout the season. You inevitably will, because that's the name of the game. But yeah, every team is still in with a shout. I am probably not as hot on the Dolphins as a Dolphins fan like yourself, maybe. But you've got the talent, you know. Waddle and Hill are good. You've got a decent running back room. Tua, if he gets back to the level he can do, is good. I don't believe in your defense personally. I don't think your defense is all that great. I think it's got some playmakers on it. It has its moments, but you've got guys on there that I like. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, you're in with shout. I can't say you're not. Like, as much as people like, I'm sure you've had people coming here and pound, you know, want to have a dig at you about Dolphins and stuff like that. Like, it's a totally different team with Tua in it. And whether you like Tua or not, they are better with Tua in it. Like that's just a fact. So, yeah, you're still in with a chance.
Yeah, I think you look at the games he had without him, and I've been one of his biggest critics, but I think I've got to admit that the games he's not been there, it looked really bad on offense. Look at the Seahawks game, the Colts game, which I think could come back to bite at the end of the season. You know, it looked awful with Tyler Huntley or Skylar Thompson or whoever was under center, Tim Boyle as well. Shout out to him. It wasn't great, and I think even in the losses to the Cardinals, to the Bills, it was awfully competitive. We should have beaten the Cardinals. That goes without saying. And the Bills, we could have easily won that game against the odds. So I think you got to look at it positive, even if it's just for next season. How well we're playing with Tua back now. You got to really invest in some sort of protection for him, because we can't have it happening again. But if he's fully fit for the whole season, we've seen it happen when he has been fully healthy. We were the number 1 seed in the AFC in December last year. So when he has been playing, we have been competitive, which I've never seen prior to him, you know, being there. So I think you got to admit, you know, it has been much better with him in, even if he did lose to the Cardinals and Bills. But I have this horrible feeling that you're going to get to week 18. We're going to be on 9-8, same as the Colts. They're going to sneak in because of that tiebreaker against us in that week 7 game. So, yeah, it's a shame, but it's what it is. I mean, you could argue that maybe would you rather not be there than be there and be knocked out the first round, losing by 30 points? There's an argument there.
I see it for you. This has got to be a bit of a just what do we need to get better next season sort of thing. You know, like, let's face it, you're not going to Super Bowl. You're not going to the AFC Championship. I don't care what sort of run you go on. You are not a strong enough team to beat them top teams. Like, you're not. And I'm not. And Steelers showed against the Ravens that they are. And that's not, like I say, I'm not. This is not like a Steelers fan batting on a Dolphins fan. This is an NFL fan looking at it from the outside. If you're going to, okay, playoff football, anyone can win. I just don't think the Dolphins would win though. Like, and I'm not saying that, but I don't think the Colts will do very well in the playoffs. I think the Broncos would have an all right go at it, but I don't think they win in the playoffs. I don't think who was the other team that was milling around that area. The Bengals. I don't think the Bengals will do well, because they all have the jump from strength to weakness for the top teams in the AFC to then the middle tier teams. I think is quite a big jump. You know, you get what I'm saying there. Like, you know what I mean? I'm trying to believe my own sort of theory, I suppose. But you know, like the top teams find a way to win no matter what, and that middle bracket teams sort of don't have that just yet. And I don't know if the Steelers have that, to be honest with you. So, yeah.
I mean, you found ways to win with Mason Rudolph. Got to the playoffs last year with poor quarterback play. So I think you guys have showed over the years, really, even when Big Ben was at his worst end of his career, he still made the playoffs in his final season when he was pretty much, you know, a walking mannequin. It was, you know, it wasn't pretty, but the defense got you there, the coaching, which I think that, you know, the reason why you haven't had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. Don't know when the last one was, maybe when you got drafted Roethlisberger, but, you know, it's, you guys have proven, and even, you know, over the years, when you have had a bad quarterback play and had problems, you still found ways to make the playoffs. And I think that gets tested.
Because we have a top defense. That's what I also think is missing from some of these teams that are in that middle bracket, as well as top defense. I think the Colts defense is pretty good. I don't think your defense is all that great. The Bengals defense is terrible. The Chargers defense is really good. Like, I mean, like, some of the guys over the franchise tag are really in the Chargers are going to have a really good playoff run, because they're just hitting on all the right cylinders now in a way, and their defense is really good, and they've sort of got their game plan to a T. I still don't necessarily think the Colts, the Dolphins, the Bengals have got their game plan right yet, and they have massive weaknesses in certain areas for me.
I mean, we will talk about the Bengals later on, but I think Burrow does give them that chance. I think if they can just shoot out other teams, and just if they're willing to go games, win games by 38 to 35 every time, I think that's the way they win games. And I think that's they proved it, albeit it was 3 seasons ago. But we have seen the Bengals, even in this season, give the Chiefs a good go. And I think the Bengals have all the ability, as long as the other team is struggling on their defense. I think there's every chance that Bengals, I think, despite their defensive woes, could still cause problems in the playoffs should they get there. But I think with their schedule they've got, and also already having 7 losses, again, we'll mention that later on, I don't see it happening. And I think the Chargers, I waxed about them a lot recently. I was a guest on Fourth Down Focus. I said it on there that don't be shocked if they make the AFC Championship game, the Chargers. Don't be shocked, because they've got a top 10 defense. Running back is top 10 in yards and touchdowns this season. They got top 10, passing offense, rushing offense, and their defense has been amazing. So I think, and they're well coached by Jim Harbaugh. So I think, this Chargers team, I think, is definitely for me a dark horse this season. Moving on to your Steelers, they did get another win in a massive AFC North battle as they beat the Ravens by 18 points to 16. Only 0 touchdowns for Russell Wilson, but 6 converted field goals for Chris Boswell. It really was the game for kickers, but different ends of the spectrum. You had, of course, Boswell, as mentioned, then 6 field goals converted, but Justin Tucker had 2 missed field goals, and I think he's missed it on this season as well. I think Tucker, the end is here. I think the Hall of Fame career, the best kicker of all time, you could argue. I think it did cost him the game, and I think Tucker's time, is probably coming to an end in the NFL. But we talked about it on our preview with our other Freddie, other Steelers fan. We talked about how the Steelers defense can get to Lamar Jackson, get to Henry. Now, Henry did have 1 touchdown, 65 yards, but the Steelers defense really got to Lamar Jackson, and I think in a way they did hurt his MV3 credentials.
Oh yeah, this was the best game the defense has played in a while. For me, like the whole area, like we've had really, really great pass rushing games, sack games. We've struggled with good coverage games for the last few seasons, and it's been my thing about it. It's been my thing a lot about the Steelers is that the secondary is quite weak. This was really a really good whole game from start to finish by the defense, and not surprised really because they are good. But surprised in the same sense because the Ravens' offense is really, really good. Like this is a very, very, very good offense, and Lamar Jackson's a very good quarterback. I'm fine with us not scoring a touchdown because we are run first, and this is one of the best teams in the NFL at run defense. They are not great over the top, but we do not have the weapons to go over the top. So I am fine with that. Like George Pickens had a fantastic game. We need to give him a little bit more help and give Wilson a bit more help. We held the Ravens to the lowest amount of total offensive yards this season. And that's if we can build on that momentum, like no one ever doubted the Steelers defense at the start of the season. I just don't know whether anyone knew what was their heights, I suppose. Maybe this is our heights. Maybe suddenly it might be all downhill from here. It might be completely terrible the rest of the season. But I don't see that happening. Obviously, the big thing for us is keeping injury free. Massive, massive thing for us is keeping our best players healthy and on the field. So we just got to do that. I don't care that we didn't score a touchdown. We beat the Ravens, a huge divisional game. When you looked at our schedule before the season, I said, our week bye was week 8, and I thoroughly believe we could have gone. The optimist in me said that we could have gone 8-0, and I was like, if we can go 8-0 and get to the bye, we could lose every game, and we'd be still in a good chance of getting into the playoffs. And yet we got to the bye and with a really, really good record. And yeah, this second half of the season is going to be a lot harder because there's a lot of divisional games, but we've put ourselves in a division where there is less pressure, which is good. I think that's a really good thing for us. Could you argue that we would maybe have a bit more of a high flying? Our offense on paper, well, under stats and box scores, isn't great. But could you argue if Russell Wilson started the season? Would it be? Would we have lost more games? You just don't know. What I did feel was quite cool in this game is the use of Justin Fields. I really enjoyed that. I think that's the right way to do this a little bit, and I would like to see that not a lot more often. But it's nice that we are using the arrows in our quiver to change it up a little bit, because this offense has been dull, real dull for the last 2-3 seasons. And I'm not saying Arthur Smith's pulling up any trees with this offense, but there has been an injection of excitement. I think it'll be better next season, to be honest with you, even though it has been decent this year. And I think we just, you know what the Steelers are, great defense, and long may it continue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would have had this being the season you're having. I mean, it's, the usual sort of narrative people have the last couple of years. It's going to be Mike Tomlin's first losing season. He's going to every year he just completely goes against what everyone thinks. I mean, fair, even the last couple of years, you started off slowly and come back and done well. But this year, you started off really well. And I think, I think what we've seen, I think, in recent weeks is the whole thing about, being offensive league. I think we've seen with certain teams I mentioned later on, defense still wins championships. And I think it's certainly proving it with your team. I think, if I'm honest, I think offensive lines win championships, but I think defense certainly, if your defense is terrible, you got no chance of winning anything. And I think for me, it's, again, I said, well, huge credit to Mike Tomlin, what he's doing with his team, and even Arthur Smith, a guy who has been pretty much, criticised and slated the last year or two with the time of the Falcons, and he's come into the Steelers, and you guys look really good. And Russell Wilson isn't looking like a top 5 quarterback, but I think Russell Wilson is doing a really, really solid job. And I think, again, that goes out to Mike Tomlin and the coaching staff. And I think, you got hard schedule coming up. That was your first game of the season against a division opponent, but I think you have given yourselves a really good chance of winning this division. So, yeah, massive credit to you guys. And I think for the Ravens' point of view, I think they'll be fine. I think it's even when he won MVP last year, they did lose to the Steelers. So I think it's just a division game. I think we'll see them go back next week and win. And I forget who they're playing next week, but I'm sure, they'll somewhere the playoffs. They'll make it either division winner or the 5th seed, I'm sure. But yeah, got to give them massive amount of credits. And I think.
So who the Ravens are playing or who the Steelers are playing next week?
Ravens.
Oh, don't know. I know we've definitely got the Browns. I know that.
Yeah, that's on Thursday Night Football, isn't it? I believe.
I think so. I can't remember, to be honest with you. Probably.
Yeah, you're playing them Thursday night, and then the Ravens play the Chargers on Monday Night Football. So that should be
okay.
We just talked about the Chargers quite a lot before. I mean, that should be some game. I'm really looking forward to that. Moving on to the latest.
I'm actually off on Friday, so I could feasibly stay up for the game. I didn't realise that. That's quite enough. Thank you for telling me, because I completely forgot, to be honest.
Wow, yeah, so how are you going to celebrate? Are you going to get some food in, do you reckon, or are you going to just hope you stay awake?
We'll see. I'm changing jobs, and Thursday night is my leaving drink, so I've got Friday off. So hopefully, if I'm not too intoxicated by the time it gets around to midnight, I'll stay up for a little bit. Well, I say midnight and start till bloody 1:15, which is the crux of it all. But we'll see. I'm not one for staying up late for games anymore. I'm very much a highlights on the tube sort of guy these days.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. I think I do for the Super Bowl. Sometimes, maybe if I'm out, especially when it gets that time of year when you got games on Saturday nights, around about Christmas time. Sometimes if I'm doing something with friends, I'm out till midnight. I'll sometimes try and stay awake, but I do value my sleep too much. And I think my morning, is normally spent on I got a bit of an hour long commute, so I tend to watch. Download the whole game ad-free on Game Pass once it eventually actually comes up available, that is. Knowing what the zone's like this season with Game Pass. And then I tend to watch on the whether it's first half at home, second half on the way to work, or first half on the way to work, second half on my lunch break. I turn off my phone, all notifications off. So my colleagues may think I'm the most dedicated worker ever. Not on the phone once, but yeah, no, I can't do it. It's just, I remember I even went out in Sky's house once recently watching one of the Thursday games before London, and just couldn't do it. I was in a taxi back to my Airbnb at halftime. I just can't do late nights, especially I'm turning 30 next year, so yeah, I'm getting old now.
All right, you can slow that down. I'm 30 already, so you can slow that down. I'm getting old. Oh no.
I won't ask you for your age.
I'm just there. I was 30 this year, so that's why I was commenting on it.
Well, the Broncos, you mentioned them before, they swept the division for the first time since 2015. They got a convincing 38-6 win over the Denver Broncos. As well as this, as well, I had another stat for you, and I've already lost it. Moving on to other games. Monday Night Football saw the Texans beat the Cowboys 34 points to 10. But moving back to Sunday, and the Buffalo Bills ended the Chiefs' long unbeaten streak. They won by 30 points to 21 at Highmark Stadium. Josh Allen had one touchdown, one pick, but the pick of the game was his rushing touchdown, where he basically completely angry runs over a Chiefs player. And I think for me, I'm actually right now in the middle of writing an article about this, but Josh Allen is now 4-1 against Mahomes in the regular season. It's good to celebrate a win, knocking off the Chiefs and beating record, moving up close to them in terms of the AFC #1 seed. But we've seen them beat before in the regular season, but come the playoffs, we've seen the Chiefs beat the Bills both times. So as much as the one hand, I think Bills fans can get excited over a win against the Chiefs, like you would, anyone would. But also, I think they've got to be more focused on how can we beat them in the playoffs.
They're 4-4, aren't they? In regular season and playoffs, it's 4-4 now, I believe.
I thought it was 4-3. They lost in the 2020 season game.
They were 3-4 before they won at the game.
Oh yeah,
and winning this game, it is now 4-4 in regular season and postseason. So 4-1 would make sense because they've lost 3 times in the playoffs to them.
Yeah, because you had the 2021, you had the best game out of all time, in my opinion, the one in the divisional round the following year, and the one last season with Right. Yeah, that makes sense because I know he was 3-1 against Mahomes in the regular season prior to this game. So yeah, that is right. But yeah, no, I think I think the Bills. I still think Josh Allen, he has his flaws, but you give him, when he's on it, he is a very, very good quarterback, and I think that they may have to, like the Bengals, win game by by outscoring teams by 30 points to 25 or something. But it's just when you see Josh Allen at his best, it's just such a good quarterback to watch.
I think you're wearing your AFC hat a little bit.
I should hate him. I hate the Bills, but I should hate Josh Allen more because he has broken my heart more than any other quarterback. But you just can't deny how good he's been.
I think any team that has Josh Allen in it can win. I think he is a superb quarterback. He is. Some people think he's going to be the face of the NFL. I can't see that. I think Pat Mahomes is the face of the NFL. That's just fact. They showed in this game they were not intimidated. You come to our house, we are going to be noisy, we're going to be loud, and we're going to make it uncomfortable for you. And the Chiefs are pretty good at getting over that a lot of the time. But the Bills, I think they felt like they played with extra juice in this game. And some of their players are really coming up, like Khalil Shakir. What a season he's having! He's in the conversation. He's making numbers like some of the top guys in the league at the minute. The Amari Cooper trade now looks incredibly smart. Like he made some fantastic plays as well. I think this defense is pretty decent as well. I don't think it's the defense of maybe 4 years ago, but I still think it's a very good defense. And they played a good game. They knew what they could do. They knew they couldn't run on the Chiefs. The Chiefs were one of the best rushing defenses in the league. They're one of the better passing defenses as well, but they were really systematic against the Chiefs at picking their throws. Allen has maybe been criticized at times for being a bit of a gunslinger and maybe overdoing it. In this game, he didn't. He was really, really clever, I thought, with all their throws. And I just think they're a pleasure to watch. I really do. And it's bad because I've sort of like, as a Steelers fan, AFC division rival, I suppose, like, I've wanted the Bills to win a Super Bowl last few years. I think they have been really, really good. They've been really fun to watch. I think they've got a great fan base. it would be really cool to see them in the Super Bowl this year. As someone said earlier on the other podcast, it would be great to see a Bills-Lions Super Bowl. Now, that is a Super Bowl I would like to definitely have. That's one I think a lot of fans would like as well. And then on the flip side with the Chiefs, the only people in the whole NFL that don't care about losing a game is the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sorry, they do not care that they lost this game. They are not bothered by this whatsoever. The Chiefs do not care how they get to the playoffs as long as they get to the playoffs. And they will get to the playoffs because they've only lost one game. They are not going to crumble at this time of the season. And even if they get this record, they might slip into the wild card anyway if they lost out for the rest of the season, which they're not going to do, as we know. This team, all they are playing for is January. They don't care how they get there. They get into January. That's all that they are bothered about. And you can tell in how they played this year. Mahomes has not played well. He has not been good this year. Their defense has been superb. It's not very often we said about this Chiefs team, they are going to get to the playoffs because of their defense. It's always been about the Chiefs because of how good Pat Mahomes is. It doesn't matter to them. It just does not matter. They will get to the playoffs, and then that's when they believe they'll beat everyone. It's like the whole thing with Travis Kelce being really bad this year. Travis Kelce doesn't care. Travis Kelce cares about is playing really well in January. And I think that's the same for Pat Mahomes. I think that's the same for Andy Reid. I think that's this team's mentality now. They expect to get to the playoffs, and it's then overcoming the playoffs, of which they have done. Because there was when they got to the wild card and it wasn't going to be home field advantage, and it was it's not all going to be on the Chiefs' terms this time. Yeah, well, they went and won the Super Bowl. It does not matter to them. So I'm going to bear no relevance with it them being their first loss. I'm sorry, I just don't think they care. They played pretty well anyway. They were good. Yeah, they need a bit more offensive help, I think. But again, they've had this before, and then they've got to the Super Bowl and won it. So this was more of a bigger thing for the Bills, I think, as a mentality thing, is sticking their sort of flag in the sand of, we're here and we're here to play really well. And we're here to try and get to the Super Bowl and be a probable AFC Championship team. So, yeah, the Chiefs, it's just another week. And next week will be another step closer to the playoffs for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think they may have been trying to go for the unbeaten season. I mean, I think they would have probably been bothered about a loss, maybe about half an hour. They probably would have gone, we're still going to aim for that three-peat. I think that's been their target all season, has been the three-peat more than going unbeaten. And I think despite Mahomes' struggles, he's had, 15 picks, I think about 15 touchdowns, about 11 interceptions. But he's actually, I saw stat the other day, he's actually one of the best quarterbacks this season when it comes to third down. I mean, even in games where they've won, he's played badly, you can guarantee on a third down play, he's making a play, which is what's getting the wins. I mean, he's throwing picks and he's making bad throws, but there's been a lot of times where they're on a 3rd and 13 or 3rd and 7, and Mahomes he's finding Kelso, he's finding Hopkins, and he's finding a way. And I think that, for me, should be scary for the whole league, is that they've been really bad, but that they've lost one game in the first 10. And I think we're still seeing Mahomes showing his clutchness, even if most parts of the game he is struggling. He's finding ways to win. And I think, we've seen, you mentioned your Steelers going 11-0, starting season really well. The Cardinals did it a few years ago, I think in 2021. Then they faltered at the end of the season. Form was bad. Get to playoffs, what happens? They lose in the first round. But I think with the Chiefs, I think if they get their form going late on in the season, like the Patriots did all those years, that's how they view their season. They're almost viewing the first 8 or 7 weeks as preseason, and then they go on to the next, week 8 onwards as almost their start of the year. So I think the Chiefs will be fine. They'll be absolutely fine. They'll get to as you said, they'll probably get to the playoffs as a number 1 seed or maybe number 2 seed at worst. I think they'll still go far. I still think the Ravens, I still think they don't win it. I do still think that whether it's the Ravens, I still think it's Lamar Jackson's year. So I still think they get beat in the championship game. But
you also forget with the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco's back in like a week, 2 weeks. He is a big part of their offense, and they've not been the same without him. And he's a heck of a running back as well.
Yeah, it's should be a warning sign for the whole rest of the league. Moving on to what I think was, for me, the game of the week: Chargers against Bengals, Sunday Night Football. The Chargers getting a win by 30 points, 27. But that's not really the whole story. The Chargers were up. I'm going to get the actual proper thing that I've lost the actual stat.
They were 24-6 up at the half.
That's the one.
That's what you're trying to find. Yeah.
24-6 up at half time. Then the Bengals 3 touchdowns in the second half to move back to 27-27 before the Chargers won the game with a touchdown towards the end of the game from J.K. Dobbins with 26 seconds remaining, but also with Bengals kicker Evan McPherson missing 2 field goals, which would have won in this game, or at least taken it to overtime. Joe Burrow, once again, a fantastic game. For me, he would be an MVP favourite if it wasn't for how bad this team's been defensively. 3 touchdowns, almost 400 yards. What more does he have to do? I mean, looking at his stat in total this season, he leads the league in yards, touchdowns, only 4 picks, over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns. For me, if his team was 7-0 with this record, 9-1 that the Chiefs are, he'd be the MVP favourite. But sadly for him, he's not, because they can't seem to win a game. And credit to them, they have lost a lot of games by close scores. But you have to feel sorry for him, don't you? Because it's just, he's been playing so well, but whether it's his kicker or his defense, we saw that actually the Bengals game we watched in London, the kicker let him down in that game as well. He must feel like, if I was him personally, I would have requested a trade. Honestly, I would have requested a trade, because this team continues to let him down, whether it's not investing in the offensive line, whether it's the defense being bad, which I'm surprised about, because Anarumo over the years, we've seen it particularly in playoff games, how well the defense how well it's done in sort of adjusting plays, how the game's gone, and how well the scheming's been from Anarumo. It just seems to me, I don't know what's going on this year, but yeah, it just seems Joe Burrow must be the most unluckiest man in the NFL right now.
I don't think luck has anything to do with it. To be honest with you, I think this is a bit of a coaching thing. You know, Zach Taylor won 2 games without Joe Burrow, and they are putting a lot on Joe Burrow to win them games in a minute, and he can't do it on his own. You know, he is exceptional. You know, he's a top 3 quarterback in this league. He is so good, and he's winning with a one dynamic offense as well. You know, they're 26th in rushing yards. You know, they're 23rd in rushing touchdowns. They've got no run game. Chase Brown's been good the last 2 weeks, but is that a bit late for him to get the ground running going into week 12? I don't know. Like, I think that's a little bit late in the day for your running game to start going. You know, they are incredible. You know, the first in yards, first in touchdowns in the passing. You know, he's only had 4 interceptions, which is 6th in the NFL at the minute. Like, he's incredible. He is a unicorn, and he's been fantastic. But greatness cannot overcome a defense that is the 30th ranked defense and a running game that is the bottom half of the NFL. You can only do so much with that, and I think the coaching has got to be looked at here. I mean, the GM's also got to be looked at. You know, they lost a lot of key pieces on that Bengals defense. They've drafted really poorly. The players have drafted have not come to fruition. They've lost, is it DJ Turner, their cornerback now? It looks like he's going to be out for the season. Like, it's terrible. They were in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and you could maybe base it on the fact that Jesse Bates went, and Jesse Bates was phenomenal for them at the back as a safety. Him and Von Bella's duo are incredible. Okay, he's not quite doing it at the Falcons, but he's still a very, very good player. And, you know, Trey Hendrickson's in a contract year now. He's coming to the end of it. T. Higgins is coming to a contract year as well. You've probably got to choose one of them. If you're going to choose one of them, you've then got to look to the draft. What do you do with that? There is a big question mark over this Bengals team. And the question mark is not over how good Joe Burrow is, because we all know that. And I think that this organization, the franchise, the fans are screaming out to help Joe Burrow, because they need to do that. I think, you know, Joe Burrow is not going to request trade. Joe Burrow is not going to get traded away. That's not going to happen, I don't think, in a million years. What I do think will happen is there's going to be a coaching change this offseason. I didn't think this 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was in Munich chatting to a guy, and we had 5 teams that we were like, they are dead set changing their coach next year. I think Zach Taylor wasn't in that conversation at the time. He's in my conversation now.
Yeah, I think you have to ask questions soon. I kind of view it a bit like Gareth Southgate, I find personally with him, because he's done well. You know, you think about, you know, what he's done in the Bengals, you know, taken to a Super Bowl, you know, AFC Championship game and all that. But look at the players he's got and what he had, you know, before Burrow came in and Chase came in. It wasn't great. And you think about Southgate, you know, how well he's done, but you got to think, look at the route he had to the finals and all these, or semi-finals and all these tournaments. And I feel like Zach Taylor, he's done a great job. He's sort of brought great things to the city and to the team. But if you got Burrow and Chase, I mean, of course you're going to do well. Of course you're going to go far. And the reason they got Burrow in the first place was because of how bad he was coaching. And same when they got Chase after the Burrow injury the year later. And I think that, you look at someone like, I don't know whether Mike Vrabel's the Anticles defensive coach, but if you can get a offensive-minded coach, bring him in, I think
Vrabel's a great shout. I think Vrabel's should definitely be a contender for a lot of head coaching jobs this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take him at Dolphins easily. He'd bring stability. Think about his time at the Titans with pretty much for a lot of years, a poor team. And I think you can make the argument on one hand that if you bring in a new coach, they've got to learn new schemes. But I think, you've got to do something because you can't keep allowing this team to pretty much waste Burrow's career. I mean, I don't know how good the offensive line talent is this year in the draft. If it's really good, I can just go out and just get as much as you can and defense the same thing. I mean,
Edge rush has got some guys. Edge rush has got some guys in it this year in the draft. Right. Defensive, interior defense. There's a few guys at the top. It whittles down a little bit, but there's an all right plethora of edge rushers. They need help at both. They need both for me. So, if they're getting a mid-round pick at this point, I think they'd get probably a pretty good one, maybe a pretty top one because of the people that are picking above them. So, that could definitely be an option for them.
My fear for them is that they're going to go 1-for-1. They're going to probably, they might get rid of Hendrickson and keep T. Higgins, and then it's going to replace Hendrickson with an edge rusher who can't guarantee is going to be good, and therefore he's still got the other problems in the team. So I think Bengals need a huge sort of off-season now, I think, for the whole franchise's sake, because, you stick Burrow literally on the Ravens, on the Steelers, on most teams apart from maybe the Bills and the Chiefs, and any team who has a good offensive line, he would probably win you a Super Bowl. Genuinely, I mean, if you got a good, Steelers would be perfect. If he was on the Steelers, you'd probably be looking at a season now like you're probably 9-1 like the Chiefs are. I mean, they have a good defense. The O line's pretty good, and obviously you got.
Oh, we're close to 8-2 with Russell Wilson, so don't worry, we're not that far away.
we don't need him. It's fine. But no, I do feel sorry for him because the guy like him deserves to win at least one ring, as good as he's been. So, worrying times for Bengals fans. But that is where we will end our Week 11 review. So once again, Freddie, huge thanks for coming on.
No worries at all. Thank you for having me on, Andy. And long may your show continue, doing some really, really great work. And we always enjoy seeing you at the London games and NFL events. So, yeah, and also catch the Franchise Tag as well on YouTube and on all social media platforms. I feel like us guys very much support each other as well as a lot of other NFL UK outlets. So, yeah, long may that continue the hard work that you're doing on this pod.
Well, likewise with your podcast, you're doing really good things. You guys have smashed it the last 2 years, particularly. And I don't want to get too deep here, but it's been really good, getting to know you even on a non-NFL media basis. Going for drinks after the events, and many of the things we did together. I think it's just nice to have that sort of working together, but also then finding time to see each other outside of that. I think has been really cool getting to know you and Sky and Gareth and Shane and everyone else who's who's there, who we sort of hang around with. It's been really fun, and long may it continue. But that is where we will end the podcast for today. Our Week 11 review with myself, Andy, our guest today, Freddie Hall, and we'll see you guys for our Week 12 preview. See you then.